This Rise and Shine podcast series has been made possible by the generosity of the Zeidelman Family Foundation, which is committed to the unity and continuity of the Jewish people through meaningful and relevant Jewish education and wisdom.
The best way to fight anti-Semitism is to create a proud, resilient, educated, intelligent Jew whose narrative is based on their rich history and not a response to how people feel about us.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold Davis.
I recently had the incredible privilege to be on a Momentum staff Zoom call with the extraordinary Dr. Zohar Raviv. Now, Dr. Raviv is an internationally recognized Jewish thought leader and an educator. He's currently the International Vice President of Educational Strategy for Taglit Birthright Israel. This year, he's also a scholar in residence for Momentum, hence the access to a private session for our staff. And after a deeply insightful lecture on what it means to be a Jew today, he opened up the floor to questions. And there was this immediate sea of raised hands. All of us wanted a chance to ask him our pressing questions and concerns. And his answers, well, they were thoughtful and generous. He actually took his time and listened to the questions. I noticed that as every question was being asked, he was writing them down with a pencil, taking notes. There was as much to learn from him about the way he listens as there is from his erudite and articulate way of speaking. He shared that he believes we're at a point that is a revolutionary moment in the evolution of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. He said that we're at a crossroads of awareness and willingness for action that has been unprecedented. He then commented that by extension, that moment of awareness and action has met people very differently. Some, he said, saw October 7th as a reaffirmation of their long-standing angst and worry about anti-Semitism, while others, even many, he said, were stunned back into their Jewish identity against their better judgment. Within this moment, he asserted, as we help people forge their identities, we must be sensitive about the impetus of this awareness. For some, this new awareness of their Judaism is reactive in nature, and that those people will need greater support. They simply don't have the tools to deal with their fear and confusion, nor do they have a Jewish identity that is proactive rather than reactive. And boy, do I know exactly what he means, because as a Jewish educator, I have never been busier. Jewish students are, as they say, coming out of the woodwork, as sadly has been the case whenever anti-Semitic tropes and behaviors rear its head. You know, like that mythical creature Hydra that grows two heads every time you cut one off? Anti-Semitism is a shape-shifting disease, and it sleeps very lightly. And just when you think it's vanquished, it comes back stronger. But it also has a way of waking up those whose Jewish identities were dormant or even rejected in the past. And his argument, Dr. Raviv's, is that we must be a Jew not because of October 7th, but despite it. That we're born to celebrate Judaism, not to defend it. We've brought such bounty and depth and meaning and purpose to this world. There is so much to be proud of, such resilience to draw from. And it's tragic if one's sense of Jewish identity is only forged in a time of tragedy. His basic premise, and of course ours at Momentum as well, is that the best way to fight anti-Semitism is to create a proud, resilient, educated, intelligent Jew whose narrative is based on their rich history and not a response to how people feel about us. Someone asked a really important question towards the end of the session. She wondered how to address the true haters among us, those who have used heinous language and made warped accusations. Dr. Raviv, he literally wrung his hands. He was bowing his head. You could see him thinking, his whole forehead furrowed. Listen, he said, there are some people who cannot be spoken to or educated at this moment. It's too threatening to them. Reality, or a different version thereof, is not something they can tolerate. In short, he seemed to be saying not to speak where we won't be heard, not to attempt conversation or even education where it won't be effective. The problem, he asserts, is not the content of the conversation, but rather conversation itself. So many people are incapable of the curiosity, the humility, and the openness required to truly find a meeting of the minds, to really have a dialogue, or even to be open to hearing a different narrative. Come on, folks, we live in such a tightly regulated echo chamber and algorithm. It's prevented us from being able to tolerate nuance or differing views, or even from personal growth and intellectual honesty and rigor. And then he said this, and it stopped me short. He advised that we should become a blissful irritation to people's minds by inspiring them towards patience, humility, and the ability to befriend ambiguity. This, he thinks, is how we can change the status quo. So after hearing what he said, I asked myself, if I could do that befriending in all areas of my life, not just the Jewish ones, if my interactions and my dynamics with my friends, my husband, my kids, had sufficient patience and humility to let go of that delusional power of control that comes with thinking I'm right. What do I do when I'm facing something that's far and away out of my comfort zone, whether it's an opinion, a stance, a point of view, and it really rattles me? Do I shut down? Do I get defensive and angry? Or do I truly listen? Not wait my turn to speak, but really, really listen. Can I deeply disagree with someone or something and still be able to sit in it or in their presence without storming away physically or even mentally? This week, I invite all of us to look at one of Momentum's core values, and that is the value of learning and growth. You know, it's an overarching value that's more a mindset and a starting point. If being a lifelong learner is a key in becoming a better person, can we find the growth experience in every encounter we have? Can we see each circumstance as instructive so as not to be reactive? Can we befriend ambiguity for the sake of greater wisdom? I believe that moving towards this mindset may also be the key to enhancing our resilience. And boy, do we need resilience these days.
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was sponsored by the Zeidelman Family Foundation. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.